Greetings, science fiction and fantasy enthusiasts. Do you read books? Do you watch films? Do you hate deodorant? Then welcome to our podcast. With Ryan Sean O'Reilly, David Wilkinson, and Richard Mell. You're listening to No Deodorant in Outer Space. Now, let's get started.
I have whirled with the earth at the dawning, when the sky was a vaporous flame. I have seen the dark universe yawning, where the black planets roll without aim, where they roll in their horror unheeded, without knowledge or luster or name. Welcome back, loyal listeners, to another edition of No Deodorant in Outer Space. I am your favorite host, Ryan Sean O'Reilly. And with me, tied for second, is David Wilkinson. Dave, who's too busy periscoping right now. Oh, there we
go. How you guys doing? I'm here. Hey, babe. Want to come over here and watch a podcast?
Oh, are you talking to me? Because I'm watching you right now, literally. And next to him, also in second place, is Richard Mell.
Hey, everybody.
Huh?
It's our Halloween recording, and everyone's dressed up but me.
Yeah, you're dressed as a square.
Mm-hmm.
You're dressed as a square.
Working drone.
A worker drone. Nice.
Do you want to see this?
Oh, and Wilk is busy on Periscope again, and I see Dave Allen has joined.
Yeah, kind of. I can see them, they can see us.
On this episode, we are going to be covering stories by H.P. Lovecraft, specifically a collection of short stories called The Call of Cthulhu and Other Weird Stories. And then there was 4 movies we were going to cover. Re-Animator, directed by Stuart Godden and starring Jeffrey Combs. Bride of Re-Animator, directed by Brian Yuzna, also starring Jeffrey Combs. Cthulhu, directed by Daniel Gildark, which had Tori Spelling. And Dagon, also directed by Stuart Godden and starring Ezra Godden. Alright, well then let's just, let's go into our opening remarks. Rick, or Wilk, let's go with you.
I would say H.P. Lovecraft is a horse-faced genius who is not well known in his time, but whose tales have a lasting legacy of terror and weirdness.
Okay, Rick, follow that up.
Opening remarks.
Yeah, well, I cannot help but just draw parallelisms with H.P. Lovecraft and William S. Burroughs. I mean, both of them. Yeah.
All right, that's good. We'll go to me. Sorry, Rick.
That's fine. That's such a hot topic that you want to stay away from. But I mean, it's just the opening remark. That's all.
No,
I don't need to explain
I'm making fun of the fact that your opening remarks are never like short. They're always long.
No,
go ahead.
That's fine. I just wanted to throw that out there. That's all I've got to say. That was my opening remark.
Okay. All right. Then mine is going to be, behold, the Eldritch Other in all its cosmic horror, brought to you through Lovecraftian prose and a cascade of increasingly dismal and slightly unbalanced vignettes. So, I'll welcome you guys back. Wilk, what are you drinking there tonight? I just saw you drinking something.
Well, thank you for asking. I'm drinking a beer that says Leffe, which I think is Spanish for boss. But it's a Belgian beer, so I'm not sure what it is. But it's a Leffe Anno 1240. It's delicious. What are you drinking?
I have Red Bull.
Red Bull! It gives you wings.
I thought this would help me somehow calm down to deal with you guys. Rick?
Yeah, I'm smoking a Mellow Gold American Spirit and having a White Russian with my wife.
White Russians are my favorite drink when I'm relaxing. It makes me feel like I'm on vacation instantly to have a White Russian.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh, God.
Oh, yeah. So, I don't know if you guys have any personal updates on anything. What's new that's going on with you?
My lovely life partner started a website and blog called MajorHorror.com.
Taken off on the internet.
HOR, yeah. Horror as in not like you pay for sex, but horror like they cut you up while you're having sex. MajorHorror.com. And, so she's having fun with that. She's really into Halloween. It's if you're listening to this, it's probably past Halloween, but yeah, there's that. You know what we should do on our website? I wrote a short story novel where I had a character based on Ryan.
A short story novel. I like that. I like that.
I wrote it. I had a job I hated for 2.5 years, and I spent all my time there writing a novel that just meandered about basically everybody I work with dying from a serial killer that was loosely based on me. I called it Killing Shakespeare.
Killing who? Killing Shakespeare?
I went Killing Shakespeare, and then at some point I had a character based on Ryan that I went bow hunting with, and I shot him with an arrow.
I usually die in most of the things that Wilk writes. If I'm not a named character, I'm usually the person that's dying.
You have a sing-song voice. Hello, he said.
Rick, any updates from you? Are you continuing to drone?
Well, I was in Seattle last week, and
oh yeah, that's right. How was that?
the more I travel, the more I realize Chicago is just a big hole in the ground, and everyone's in on the joke, but Chicagoans, don't try and convince a Chicagoan that Chicago sucks, but it really does.
It's a hole next to a beautiful lake.
Yeah, right. Yeah, sure. Occupied by the moneyed.
I was out there earlier this year when I went to Worldcon on Spokane, and there was a lot of wildfires going on, and it was pretty smoky.
Oh.
But it was a good time, my first Worldcon convention.
What happens at Worldcon? Is that more for writing, or is that more for something else?
It's more for fans. It's more for like science fiction, fantasy fans. It's all it's like the fan convention, and that's where they vote on the Hugos. The fan, like whoever attends it or pays for a supporting membership, I think, can vote.
Okay, elephant in the room. Tell us about your writing camp. I want to hear all about it. Tell us everything.
Oh yeah, I completed Viable Paradise Writers Workshop, class of 19. It was a pretty intense week of reading, writing, critiquing, socializing, some drinking, some merrymaking.
Any single chicks?
I don't know.
It was all about business, right?
There was women and men there. I think most people were attached.
Ratio?
Was anybody hooking up with anyone, or was it like a?
Not that I know.
No.
I don't have any salacious stories to tell you, but it was a very I don't know. It was just I'm not sure I finished processing everything that was kind of thrown at me there. It was great. The people there are very positive, very encouraging, very supportive. I mean, it's everything you'd want. But
That's
it was
cool.
also a lot of work and intense too.
We all need that.
As much as it was fun.
I just feel like the old hopelessly romantic Ryan, or the young Ryan who's hopelessly romantic, would have gone there, found a woman, and written a short story about them falling in love at the conference. That would have been off-putting to her for the rest of the week. I miss that.
Oh yeah, that happened.
That's the kind of story you would have to share with the rest of the group.
when I read it aloud to the class. Things got awkward.
I call this story Caroline.
Yeah.
No refunds, they say.
No, it was just awesome.
It's cool.
It was just a great opportunity to hang out with like-minded people with similar goals, and just work on writing and talking about it and learning about the industry from successful writers and editors and stuff in the industry, and having access to all these people, and it was just great. It was rejuvenating. Then I came back to my real life and my soul was immediately crushed again.
Yep.
All right, well, Rick's about to leave.
Can I do a little break here? Can you guys see this note my wife just gave me?
Hold on, you gotta hold it. You have to hold it there better.
I got headphones on. I can't. Never mind.
You have to hold it steady.
I can't put this in the podcast. I'm sorry, I didn't read the last line.
Wilk just got in trouble. He's still getting in trouble right now.
He did.
That's rude. All right, come on. Let's get on with the show here.
Wait, I can't see it. Hold on. Oh.
What does that say?
Since I can't do dishes while you podcast, you do the dishes. When you're done, bet I feel like what? Move it over. I feel like the what? Like crap?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she doesn't feel well?
Mm-mm.
Well, we can all...
Or does she feel like crap
Okay.
because you don't do any work around the house?
I don't know.
I feel like that's the answer. That's a more exciting answer. Or she just have a touch of the flu going around.
Yeah.
That's weird.
I think being gone for 12 or 13 hours and then immediately coming home and podcasting is not a foundation of a solid.
Well, we repeatedly told you, do you want to put it off or put it off later or to postpone it? And you're like, no, what's the problem?
I like to honor my commitments now, so let's just get it done.
Plus, it gets you out of doing the dishes.
I'm doing the dishes soon too. I think after this, so
It's like freaking meatballs floating in the sink water, and it's just disgusting right now. I'm just gonna be sitting there for 3
I feel like
hours.
you doing the dishes should close out the podcast. Can you bring your laptop over to the dishes when you do them?
I could.
We'll end the show with that.
Oh God! Oh my God!
Dishes or
Yeah.
not?
Oh, I like how the dishwasher is literally open. It's like ready. Like no missing that on your way to bed.
No.
It's staring open at you like a giant maw of death of dirty dishes. Kind of like an H.P. Lovecraft story. Speaking of H.P. Lovecraft, let's get right into the book.
Yeah.
Rick, why don't you tell us a little bit about H.P. Lovecraft, the author, the man, the writer? He is he's certainly well known, but there's
you got to have respect for the reasons why he is well known, right?
go on.
You must have some respect because he does have a very solid following out there, and I mean I can see why. He's got a great, unique style in his writing. It's not really my cup of tea. He was born in 1890, and for the first several years of his life, I guess his father was going a little crazy, and well, this was the story. He went nuts. He was checked into an asylum where he experienced paralysis and went through a coma and died, and that's what was told to him, H.P. Lovecraft, when he was, just a young boy, Howard Phillips Lovecraft. But the reality of his father was that he had syphilis and he died of syphilis, and that was in the medical records. So obviously
And he wasn't dead. He wasn't dead when he was told he was dead, right?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know the minutia of that, but I mean, he
Okay.
he was just kind of denied the truth from a very young age, and his own mother went slowly crazy for the next 15 years before she was checked into an asylum, and he had a very volatile relationship with his mother. It was just a kind of a unique upbringing. His mom's father, his grandfather from his mom's side, Phillips, got him into like Gothic storytelling. When his father was gone, his grandfather pretty much took him under his wing, and his grandfather had the money to support, his 3 daughters, his mom and his 2 aunts. H.P. Lovecraft didn't make it to school every day. He was constantly sick, and it wasn't physical sickness, which was his excuse. It was mental illness, which it's just consistent with his father and his mother. So he missed a lot of school days. He couldn't get to sleep every night, so he was truant a lot at school, so much that he didn't earn a degree to get on to college, and he wanted to go to Brown his whole life. He grew up in New Hampshire, in that area by the university. So,
but he was, by all standards, he's another author that was smart and just kind of self-taught, just reading tons of stuff, from what I gather.
Right, yeah. He was into Edgar Allan Poe. He was into all of the Greek mythology. What else?
Was he into astronomy and stuff?
Oh, yeah. That was one of his early interests, and that's kind of how he found his identity, was through just stargazing. And he wanted to continue astronomy, but his math wasn't very good, and he was very articulate, obviously, so he would write to amateur science journals constantly. He wrote to other journals in the field of science and astronomy. I don't think he had anything groundbreaking to say, just probably some observations. So, he kind of struggled to keep it relevant because he wasn't really a student in an institution and thriving at all. So later on,
he was kind of reclusive person.
He was always that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, he.
I saw that. I think when his grandfather died, they didn't really manage his grandfather's estate very well, and so their financial situation kind of plummeted.
Yeah, that's key. So while his mother was going crazy, his grandfather dies, and his 2 conniving aunts, I'm sure, had something to do with the mismanagement of the money, at least in his mother's and his sector. The guy was just kind of he had this creepy upbringing, and it kind of brought out the essence of his legacy, which was creepiness style in telling stories, and how he tells them is kind of it gets into the detail, the scientific detail, and it's almost like otherworldly. Like he is strictly an observer and not a participant of civilization. That's how I read him, and he was pretty much like a celibate dude for his entire life. He didn't have much of a social life. He was extremely racist. He
was?
There weren't too many people that he liked, and I think he liked most of the people in his life through his correspondence. He wrote all kinds of letters. I think he was only second to Voltaire in writing letters, or at least ones that were recognized.
Yeah, he's very, very prolific.
And that was had a lot to do with him being the editor of sort of nurturing other writers in that field.
If I can add, he was also one of his big correspondents and friends through correspondence. I don't know that they ever met. Was Robert Howard, the writer of the Conan series, who we covered when we did Solomon Kane last season.
Yeah, I'm sure those two racists got along very well.
What made him racist? I didn't catch any of that.
No way.
I don't know that it came out in these stories we read. There wasn't a lot of that, but I think maybe more in his private letters. I'm not sure about his other writings. Lovecraft had a lot of fears. I was listening to some podcast where another author was talking about it. I think he was just kind of afraid of everyone.
And he was kind of spineless. Like, he wouldn't take on his fears. He would sort of run away from them. But then again, he did sort of write stories about his fears.
So he actually did marry. If you probably saw that, Rick. He was married for a while, although I think it probably sucked to be his wife, because not long after they were married, I think they were living separately, and I don't even know. It was like only a short time they actually lived together.
Yeah, his wife claimed that he never had sex before he met her, and he was 34 years old. She had to initiate everything, and she was a Russian Jew, and he hated Jews, so they didn't get along very well. She tried to be an entrepreneur and, start her own hat shop in Manhattan. Didn't really pan out. And she wasn't recognized really by the moneyed aunts who, just kind of just tossed their judgments on him. And he basically, he separated his wife, and he ended up going back to his town in Rhode Island after trying to make it in Manhattan. And he left his wife, and his two aunts told him his wife couldn't be involved. So she was completely, outcast.
His aunts tried to push the wife out of the picture, and he kind of just went along with it.
He went along with it, right? And that's not, that doesn't get
typical of his style.
My respect at all. Like, there's so many things about the guy that I don't like, but I mean, you have to understand his upbringing. It's kind of remarkable that he actually sort of made it as far as he did. But he was still kind of a loser, if you look at it certain ways. So,
well, and again, one of his big problems is he didn't really promote himself. He was kind of a recluse. He didn't really get out there and, promote his work.
He was actually very active in the indie publishing world, and through correspondence and letters, he made a lot of contacts, and he got involved with these small publications, sometimes as an editor and whatnot. And one of the things he did is try to encourage shared worlds. Even in this book, there's in the footnotes, you notice how he incorporated some of the ideas of Robert E. Howard, some of the characters. He also there's references in here to taking from Chambers and the Yellow Sign, and there's references to the stuff that we read. The King in Yellow. So he was active that way, but it was all from afar, like Rick was saying, which I think kind of comes out in his writing. His writing has a certain removed feel to it.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He was a recluse. He really never had commercial success in his lifetime. I'm not sure who gets the success right now. I wish I would have researched that, who gets the residuals, because
it's public domain. I think this is public domain.
Is it really? Holy cow.
Yeah, because it's so old. I mean, he dies in 1937 at the age, he's only 46 years old.
Well, right.
Okay, and the copyright law was different back then.
Well, yeah, help me out here. So, how does that? Yeah,
well,
I mean, honestly,
I don't know. Okay,
I don't know about that. Yeah,
sure. I don't know the nuances of it, Eric. It's just kind of gets a little complicated. But in 1976, there was a big shift in the copyright law where they started saying you didn't have to necessarily you got copyright as soon as you created something, and they wanted you to register, but you didn't have to register to have a copyright. You just got certain legal advantages to do that. And then they started saying your copyright would last your lifetime plus 50 years. And then I think the Disney copyrights were all going to expire, so Disney lobbied Congress to extend it out to life plus 70. I don't know where it's at now. But back then, when he was doing all this, you would have situations where, if you didn't register the copyright, you lose it, or it would only be good for a certain amount of years, and if you didn't renew it in time, you lose it. So and it just was not as long as it is now. So that's why I think a lot of people use his stuff. There's all kinds of like H.P. Lovecraft inspired games and things like that because anyone can use it. I mean, these movies, I was listening to one of the directors talk about saying how, referring to the H.P. Lovecraft character as being in the public domain. So, I mean, that's probably another reason why his stuff is proliferated as much is because there's not any restriction. There's no one who can kind of come in and cash in on it.
Interesting.
Which is ultimately how the copyright laws are designed to work, that eventually the stuff does get open to the public and becomes just part of the culture. And then people are free to do with what they want. But now you have longer protections nowadays.
I've had 2 beers. So.
Anyways, do you have anything else to say about Lovecraft, Rick? Or is that pretty much
politically, he was extremely conservative. He was a Coolidge sort of capitalist during the Roaring '20s, and then, when shit hit the fan and things went south, he became a great FDR fan. So, I mean, he's just kind of
look.
Yeah.
Oh,
well,
sorry.
Yeah.
I don't want. We should avoid politics in this show.
I always think it's
the Coolidge FDR gap. People are still bitter about that. I mean, I don't want to
I just thought it was noteworthy.
Yeah, I'm pro Coolidge. Don't get me wrong, but
don't alienate the Coolidge fans.
I know. I don't want to alienate the FDR fans either. It's let's just avoid the whole Coolidge FDR trap.
Just putting it out
Anyways, back to abortions. I'm all for them. Yeah.
So go on, Rick. Go on.
It's.
Sorry. Yeah.
He led a pretty unremarkable life, I thought. I mean, it was just his stuff is out there. It's got a great influence, but his own life and time and place that it took place was extremely unremarkable.
I think one of these stories, maybe Shadow over Innsmouth, he made like $350 on, and that was the most he ever made on anything. I mean, it was back in 1900s, but he wasn't churning out novels. I don't actually know if he has an actual proper novel. Some of these are like novelettes or novellas or whatever, but
yeah, I mean, he's a great artist, though. I mean,
so all right, I think go ahead.
I just sometimes his writing gets a bit thick, but that's for another time.
I always have.
All right, as Wilk frantically tries to make nice with his wife, we'll go on and talk about the book, which is a collection of short stories. And I got to say, if you're a Lovecraft fan, I would say this is pretty high up on your list. This book has an opening to it by an editor who obviously knows a lot about Lovecraft, gives you his history, his background, and then there's footnotes for every one of these stories, detailed footnotes giving you history and context in Lovecraft's greater library, as well as greater context into his time and stuff like that. So if you're a Lovecraftian fan, I think this is a great buy, a great book to pick up to learn more about it. I don't know if you felt the same way, Rick.
Cheers. Well, I thought some of the short stories we read were extremely well written. He's sort of restricted in his scope of storytelling. He writes his stories as if he were a journalist. And it's kind of annoying to just keep reading stories like this. It's not interactive and it's not engaging enough for me. It's like he's reporting. And he writes his books or his short stories as if, and it does go into an account of the story by another character that is introduced in the beginning of the story. And then within that story, there's another narrator who tells the story within that story. It's just so
there's a lot of epistolary devices using these.
It's told in third, fourth, and fifth person. It's crazy.
Well, it's not. It's third, fourth, fifth accounts. It's not like third person, fifth person, but it's. You're right. There's a lot of almost like more telling than you're removed and you're reading. You're literally reading a diary entry, or diary entry is being told to you. That's what I think you're saying, and I do think that as the stories go along, he will kind of inch you closer to the action, because usually the character who might start off more removed, picking up diary entries, reading newspaper clippings, telling about past conversations with other people, eventually the story will, or the character will go to where the action is. And so I think that does improve as the story goes along. Wilk, any thoughts on that?
I like the stories. I liked them a lot. I thought that there was no overall theme other than a underlying level of creepiness and distrust of a system. And we're all victims and overlies of paranoia that we are all susceptible to powers that we can't control and that life is futile, but at the same time impossible to understand, was found throughout all the stories. And I kind of like that. Kind of dug it.
I like that.
It was kind of a downer, but kind of a fun thing to read at the same time.
Exactly.
It's interesting because he somehow makes that work. Because I was like what you guys are saying, like the characters, like a lot of times, like they don't really have. It doesn't matter what they do; they're screwed from the beginning, right? It's like their mistake was learning about this awful secret that they ended up learning about. That's where they went wrong.
It's really not sci-fi. It's horror. It's true horror.
Yeah,
I mean, and I love horror more than sci-fi. I love sci-fi, but I like horror. I like the combination. But it's pretty terrifying, and it kind of speaks. And this is a tortured person. He's more. Who is the guy we were talking about? The guy that wrote the other racist that died young, committed suicide. I'm sorry,
Robert Howard.
He's a better writer. He's a much better writer than Robert Howard, but in the same vein. Like it's like they grew up in the same neighborhood, but this is the guy that.
Well, they were contemporaries.
They were contemporaries and friends, and they saw each other out. But like Lovecraft has a talent. I mean, he was talented. He was very talented, and like there's a underlying theme from a tortured soul in his work that kind of I don't know. It's kind of like a unified chord throughout his work that creates a symphony. I liked him. I like the short stories.
The story or this collection starts off with Dagon, which is a very short story, which not a lot happens except this character goes off and just kind of witnesses this strange, like occultish scene. And I think that was one of the early stories he wrote. And in reading some of the footnotes later on, you realize that Dagon actually was a basis to form other stories that were more developed later, like the Shadow over Innsmouth and stuff. Is there any particular stories that stuck out to you guys besides let's talk about the Call of Cthulhu, okay? Because Cthulhu is Necronomicon is a Lovecraft invention, which is what we talked about. Was that the episode with Mike O'Reilly when we were talking about King in Yellow? The Necronomicon is H.P. Lovecraft is known for Necronomicon and coming up with that concept, but he's also known for coming up with the concept of Cthulhu, who is this like high priest of the elder gods who are from a different planet, who were here before humans and are kind of laying in wait for their time to come again. And they have this kind of cult that only a few people know about. That story, which none of the movies that we watched cover that story, except there is actually a movie that I saw that covered it. It was actually a silent film made in 2005 where they did sort of a pretty faithful adaptation of Call of Cthulhu. But what did you guys think of that story, Call of Cthulhu?
Pretty good.
I struggled with it. I really did. I couldn't understand it. I was not engaged when I read it. I was skimming. And that was. I guess we didn't really have to read that story, and I ended up reading it, and I was sorry that I did, but then I read some of the other short stories, and I enjoyed them. I thought Herbert West's Re-Animator was well told, and the other one was similar, Shadow over Innsmouth. Call of Cthulhu, I was completely disengaged, and it turned me off because he was talking about massacring, colored voodoo people, and it had such racial undertones. It just turned me off, and I wasn't engaged.
Well, the quick synopsis of that story is just this guy, is he a professor or something? He keeps like finding articles, strange articles about certain things, and he sort of links them all together to this cult of Cthulhu that's going on, and people in the world, certain artists are getting like visions and dreams and recreating artwork that is like, calls back to this cult, and he's kind of going around the world then, or one of the characters going around the world trying to figure out what this cult is about, and hearing these, and like you were saying, Rick, hearing about these other stories of people running into this cult and stuff. That's the short synopsis of the story. Rick or Wilk, did you read Call of Cthulhu?
I did. Yeah, I kind of didn't get a whole lot out of it, to be honest. It was a very kind of I don't know. I thought it was kind of dull, and I feel like if I had more time, I would have read it more thoroughly.
Closer.
But
it's interesting because that's one of the most popular things that he's known for. I guess he's not necessarily known for this story itself, but like the the invention of Cthulhu. Cthulhu. I mean, what did you guys imagine Cthulhu was after reading that?
Like a kraken, you know. You know what krakens are.
Almost like a force as opposed to a thing.
What I got of it is like this creature with this like squid-like face, but Cthulhu is actually supposed to be the high priest that brings the elder gods.
Right.
And is like sort of a forebearer. And I don't know that Cthulhu actually makes a physical appearance in any of the stories where Cthulhu is mentioned.
He really didn't. That's why I thought it was more of like a force, a legend, a idea.
Yeah. But he is actually supposed to be a physical embodiment, but he's always just kind of hinted at or in the background. Like in that story, one of the scenes that stuck out to me is when they go to New Orleans and the police are hearing about this cult in the woods, in the swamps, and people are disappearing, and they go and they come across this like, for lack of a better word, orgy of people that are just doing all kinds of crazy stuff. And then there's like little short sentences and descriptions of something going on beyond all the chaos of the people. The police are aware of this strange presence in the woods just beyond the people, and they get hints of it, but they never quite see it. And that stuck out to me. I was like, that was where Lovecraft really worked for me, is using sparse words, but somehow painting an image that maybe is personal to you because he doesn't over describe it, but still give you like a mood of horror or terror that you could relate to or understand. I feel like he somehow hits in the universal archetypes that people have of fear and that we all have in our lives.
But that's what I... Yeah, okay, that works for you. It worked the exact opposite for me. I need more detail to be engaged, and it didn't hit a nerve. Like, I wasn't scared, and it was just kind of hokey to me. And the fact that he couldn't go into it more and describe what the hell it was just kind of made me a little impatient.
But don't you feel like when you actually describe something in detail, if you were to say, like, okay, Tolkien did this in Lord of the Rings, you never actually see Sauron, the evil Dark Lord. You only get like descriptions of an eye watching and stuff. It's very loose, and I feel like that makes it more scary because it's the unknowable. Everyone fears. It's like a universal fear of mankind, the unknown. And I feel like that was one of the strengths of H.P. Lovecraft, is that he doesn't describe in great detail the evilness. He just hints at it. Because once you know something, you kind of lose some of the fear of it.
I suppose you're right, but okay.
Will, what any thoughts on that?
I don't know what the hell Cthulhu was. I know that they've made role-playing games off of this. It's a variation of Dungeons and Dragons. I would have kind of liked to see Cthulhu. I mean, I just didn't know I didn't know if it was a metaphor, if it was real. It was kind of frustrating. I don't know. It was kind of a jerk-off story, I guess, to be honest. That's the phrase I want to use.
Cosmic pixie dust.
Yeah, I mean, he's written... It could be one of those Emperor Has No Clothes things where it's like, Cthulhu was never mentioned, so he's a delicate genius because he wrote a story that was full of shit that didn't have anything scary in it, but it kind of hints at it. I don't know. I mean, give me Rosemary's Baby or The Exorcist, or it was almost too subtle to the point. I don't think he was doing it on purpose. I just think it was kind of a crappy story. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
okay, fair enough.
But yeah, it wasn't my favorite. I liked it. It wasn't very. I didn't like it a lot. No. It wasn't horrible.
Okay, so besides Shadow over Innsmouth and Her West Re-Animator, besides those two, which we'll get into, any of the other stories stick out in your mind?
The Dunwich Horror. I don't know if that was part of the one I'm supposed to read, but I like that one quite a bit.
No, it's not.
Well, then, I guess, yeah.
There was one, I don't know if it was, I forget what the name it was. I don't know, was it The Outsider? Where there's this guy kind of crawling through this tower, and then he comes out into this other world, and everything's all strange. He keeps going through these portals, and then in the end, he goes through this window, and he goes in this room, and all these people run away from him, and then he eventually looks in the mirror, and he realizes that he's dead. And I feel like that's pretty indicative of a lot of H.P. Lovecraft storytelling, where the endings are always not. I feel like maybe they don't always feel so original because these kinds of endings have been done a lot now. But he was doing them way back then. But I thought that was kind of indicative of his style, where in the end you see the true horror is really the self or something like that, or something you can't escape. I saw that happening in other stories. I don't know. Any of these other stories stick out to you, Rick, besides those two that I just...
No, not at all, because I didn't read any of the other stories, so I kind of relieved myself.
Makes it harder for them to stick out.
Yeah.
Well, then let's get into Herbert West Re-Animator, okay?
Who's?
Herbert West Re-Animator. Let's talk about that one.
Herbert
Rick,
West?
Yeah, Herbert West Re-Animator. That's the name of the story.
Oh, okay. I think in the movie. Never mind. Sorry.
No, the story, the book. Then we'll talk about that book and that movie now. So let's talk about the book, Rick, or the story, or why don't you sum up that story?
I think it's kind of like the
plot of it.
A great story about peer pressure because it's told by the assistant to basically a mad scientist who is hell bent on bringing dead bodies back to life. So, it could be like the one of the first conceptions of zombie phenomenon. So I tip my hat to that. It's interesting because I think it's better. That story was better told than Cthulhu or Call of Cthulhu.
Can you sum up the plot real quickly?
Okay, well, the main character meets Herbert West in a university, I think at Brown or whatever, and the guy comes in with a predisposition to bring dead bodies back to life with his concoction.
He's got like a serum.
Yeah, right. He immediately gets pushed back from the college administration, and he's pretty much exiled from the university. The assistant follows him like a just idiot, but they end up getting a sort of like a little cookhouse in the middle of the woods, and they are finding themselves, trying to get bodies all over the place, and it's almost like this pathological impulse that they keep following, and they just keep getting closer and closer to, trouble.
And they're having some success, but it's always like backfiring.
Yeah, and the success is not even worth it, but it's just because it ends up killing people in the area, and there's all kinds of blowback here. And Herbert West, he keeps trying because he wants to basically take someone who has just died. He needs fresh blood. He keeps saying fresh blood will make the experiment work or make his serum work. And, I can only imagine Herbert West just wanting desperately to have a girlfriend. And the only way he's going to have her is if he puts her to sleep permanently and then he brings her back to life and then she's his. It's just so diabolical, and it's it plays out like such a horrible addiction with Herbert West's drive to make all of this happen. It's like, well, what the hell is he doing this for? He's destroying the entire community doing this. Anyway, Herbert West ends up getting killed by the zombies that he had created in the end. Okay,
so that's the story. And it's told in I think 5 or 6 parts, and it was serialized over, I think, in a magazine. But we get the whole story here. Wilk, there's obviously overtones to Frankenstein in this, or undertones, whatever the correct reference is. Did you feel like this is derivative of the Frankenstein story, which predates this?
I mean, I don't know. And Frankenstein's derivative of the Book of Genesis from the Bible. Everything's copied from something. So, I mean, no. I mean, okay. It's its own little thing. Yeah, it's. There's no original ideas.
So, then how did you like this story, the Re-Animator story?
I liked it. I thought it was more concise. I thought it was a good story. Had a point, a plot. Had a beginning, a middle, and end. People died. I liked the ending, irony. Yeah, I mean, I like these little. I think I like this era. It's such a different time. One of the fun things about doing this podcast is
there's something fun about this?
Well, it's not engaging with you two. It's reading the stories by myself in silence. But reading stuff from the 20s and 30s and listening to the voices and the dialect from a different era, I don't know, it kind of gives me a different feel. I like reading the old-timey horror and science fiction stuff. And I really just enjoyed almost everything I read with H.P. Lovecraft. I mean, the Call of Cthulhu, it wasn't bad. It just wasn't. I liked the short stories. I liked the punch.
You liked Re-Animator better?
I did like Re-Animator better, yes.
I listened to one of these stories in an audio format, and it translated really well to that, I felt. Yeah, I enjoyed this story too. I thought the characters were good. I liked the tensions that he set up with the, Herbert West, like the university he's studying at, and they reject him, and he's an outcast, but he's like obsessive to try to get this, his lifelong project done. And I don't know. It was a good story. Well, would you guys want to talk about the movies, the two Re-Animator movies, Sound?
Sort of, yeah.
Let's just talk about those now. We just talked about the story. So there's 3 of these Re-Animator movies. They're all connected to Stuart Gordon and Brian Yuzna, I think. The first 2 movies which we watched, Re-Animator and Bride of Re-Animator, are based on these short stories. And I think the third one doesn't have anything to do with it. They go off the rails with that. But Will, what can you tell us about Stuart Gordon or Brian Yuzna, who were both involved with these movies?
Wait, the director?
Yeah, the director.
Stuart Gordon. God, sorry. Stuart Gordon. This is like his first movie. He made one short called Bleacher Bums before this, but what an odd and varied career he has. He's very into theater, did a lot of stuff on Broadway. This is really his first feature film. I don't know if it was an instant...
And in Chicago. He was active in Chicago, too, I think.
Second City, maybe? Yeah. I mean, it had a certain comedy flair to it. I mean, like...
I don't know.
It's a good, campy movie. I mean, at no point watching this was there any actual horror, terror, or scariness on my part. It was just kind of... And this is the guy that Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, which it kind of had a similar tone to this. But, I mean...
Yeah, I saw that, but, they didn't direct that one. I thought they did. They actually, I think, wrote the story, and then someone else ended up directing it for Disney. But yeah, they were involved with Honey, Shrunk the Kids, which was interesting.
And really, but his career has not been that successful. I'm trying to up his IMDb page right now because that's what we do. And but yeah, no, he hasn't had a whole lot of big hits. This was not a big hit. I mean, this is a true cult classic, and if you watch it, it's very tongue in cheek, and I think that's kind of on purpose. I hope. But, I mean, it's entertaining. It's fluff. I own it. It's kind of a fluffy little fun movie you can show to the kids when they're 12. That's about it.
Brian Yuzna, I was watching some interviews with him. His dad was like a bridge builder. I don't know if he was in the military or something like that. He lived all over the world. He ended up going to LA and just wanted to make movies. He somehow raised financing for this. I think maybe he said it made like maybe $1 million. It wasn't really a big box office success, but it got this cult status of being a popular B movie horror, and allowed him allowed both of these guys to start their careers really in the movie making industry, and Yuzna continued to capitalize on it by making further deals later on in his life and throwing in sequels to this movie as part of his deals to get the deals done. So, both of those guys, they met someone, introduced them, they became friends, and they collaborated on these H.P. Lovecraft works, and they were both really big fans of horror. And I think they just had a lot of love of the horror genre, and I think that plays out in the movies. It's a lot of splatter, gore, I'd say, but it's not like you would say, it's not really torture porn, but it's over the top with it's about reanimation, and it delivers.
It's splatter horror, I'd call it. It's not like,
yeah,
it's fun. It's like going to a Guar concert, maybe, that kind of thing. It's not, you don't feel like anyone's being hurt, but it's a lot of like gore that's excessive.
Even though heads
are fun, and a fun gore, not gross gore.
Yeah. Although there is, the guy who worked on the movie said before he made this movie, one of the special effects guys said he only used like at the most like 1 gallon or 2 gallons of fake blood in any movie, and then when he worked on this movie, he used 24 gallons.
Ooh, wow,
that's awesome.
So there is a lot of that going on. It's sort of in the Evil Dead kind of campiness vein, I'd say, and I think it kind of came out in the same kind of time period too. I mean, at some point, someone's head gets chopped off, and that continues to be a character. Well, I can't remember. Was that in the short story? Was there? I don't think there was.
There was, yeah. It was like the captain in World War Herbert West, and his assistant goes to World War I. And they.
Yeah, that's right.
They continue their studies. Yeah,
they get bodies everywhere.
And it was like their colonel, who they reported to, whom knew he knew the secret of the serum, and his plane crashed and his head was almost off, so Herbert went ahead and just took the head off and rejuvenated the body to see what would happen.
Yeah, they throw in some love interests in these books, although not for Herbert West. that actor who plays Herbert West continues in all the movies, Jeffrey Combs, and I think he does a pretty good job of making making a character of that character pretty memorable. You know, he stands out. I don't know what else to say about the movies. I mean, I think they're fun and camping. If you like that kind of horror, it's good. I think the first one is maybe a little bit better than the second one. That's about it. Anything else you guys got to say about those?
I generally like the first one. I'm not a big fan of horror, but it was campy. It was kind of funny. Not anything that I would see just sort of passing the time away. It would basically to get a rise out of other people. That would be the only reason why I play that movie. You know, it's not for any kind of personal entertainment, that's for sure.
What about you, Will?
What was the question?
Just any more thoughts on the movie? Or the two movies, Re-Animator and Bride of Re-Animator?
Yeah, they're fun. They're fun. That's about it. I mean, they're not great movies, but they're fun. Have a few beers.
Then let's move on to the other kind of main story, The Shadow over Innsmouth.
Wait, what? There's more?
Yeah.
Yeah, the other story.
Oh, I think we're wrapping up here, dude. Let's wrap it up. We didn't
even get to the other two movies that we covered.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, I didn't watch the other two movies. Did you?
I watched them.
Oh, Rick, did you?
I wasn't able. No, I was not able to.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad I watched 5 fucking movies.
I kept telling you not to watch 5 fucking movies. I'm like,
yeah, and then you didn't.
Yeah, I did not. I watched Re-Animators.
Well, I think it's worth noting The Shadow over Innsmouth is it's a good story. It's about this guy who goes to this fishing town that's sort of isolated from the rest of the world. And when he goes there, and everyone tells him, don't go there, the place is weird. And he goes there and he discovers the place is weird. And these people have this kind of strange and storied history that he learns of more and more, where they're connected to this cult from the South Islands that worships these other gods that live in the sea. And these people are slowly turning into like these fish monsters, and eventually as they get old enough, most of them will become fish monsters and go back into the sea. He goes to visit this town just to see the history of it, and ends up getting stuck in there, and then spends the rest of the story trying to escape it. And he finally does escape it. And I thought that was actually pretty exciting. There's a scene where he's locked in his hotel room, and he thinks they're coming for him, and they are, and he has to make this mad dash out of his window to jump onto a roof of the neighboring building and jump in a skylight. It's pretty good tension. I think Lovecraft is wordy, and especially in the beginning of that story, you have to plow through it a little bit.
He's snobby.
He's snobby.
You know?
Yeah.
He's got that snobby tone, yeah, like that white Anglo-Saxon racist kind of tone.
Well, and in the end, that character, he discovers, the horror that he escaped is also part of him, which a lot of Lovecraftian characters experience that, and it kind of gets home on that. But I watched both of the movies. I watched Dagon, which was directed by Stuart Gordon, and that movie they're both set in more modern times. That movie, it's like some couples visiting this town, or their ship gets shipwrecked near this fishing town, and when they go in, it turns out there's this evil cult going on, and they all start getting hurt. And the story's a little different there, because in that story, the fish monster people are trying to mate with them, and they're also trying to get them to commit sacrifices to the fish monsters, which is in the original story. But that is an interesting movie because it's like kind of relentless with its pace. It's like it's almost like one long chase scene. I saw some review or read some critic talking about that. It's like one continuous chase scene. It's like never lets up, and I think the story doesn't quite develop strongly because of that, because it's just kind of constant action, running, chasing, escaping. And the other story, just Cthulhu, it has nothing to do with Cthulhu really, except that it uses that name and term to again talk about this evil cult. But that one stars a gay protagonist who's returning back to the town where he's from because there's a death in the family. And that director wanted to kind of exploit that theme of someone growing up in a small town and leaving, and then having to be drawn back for some reason, and then coming back and feeling the weirdness of going back to where they were from, because they're different, they're a changed person. And he plays off of that, because the character has been somewhat ostracized from his family because of his, who he realizes he is, and they are also part of this religion and cult and stuff like that, and he gets drawn into that and struggles with that. But I thought that movie was the strongest story-wise of all the movies. The one with, and actually Tori Spelling I thought did a really good job in that movie, playing this like sort of seductress secondary character. She was probably the best performance in that movie. Jeffrey Combs as Herbert West is a great performance though too, but the Cthulhu movie was the strongest of all four that I saw. But I don't know, you guys probably don't have any thoughts about those movies since you didn't watch them.
I gotta check that out after you told me about it, so I should probably rent that someday.
Yeah, it was yeah, I enjoyed it. So, okay, do you guys want to give, let's just go around and just say our star ratings. Rick, how many stars would you give the book?
Well, first of all, I think H.P. Lovecraft, he was kind of self-damning in his writing because he would kind of sort of derate the people that were trying to conjure this god of another world. But at the same time, I think he was wishing himself that something like that existed on the planet Earth. And it's such a contradiction. It's just, I don't know. It's intriguing, and at the same time, it doesn't want me to. It doesn't make me want to be a fan. It's just like the guy, I don't think liked himself enough or had enough self-respect. That's kind of a turnoff, and I think I'm done with H.P. Lovecraft for the rest of my life. So I mean, I have respect for the art of the work that he put out there, but I read up on his biography, and it's like the guy is so kind of pathetic. And well, I mean, I just his art is great though. Like if you're into that stuff, so I'm not discouraging anyone from checking it out. For me, it's just kind of depressing. I'm sorry.
How many stars would you give the book then?
Well, the short stories that I read overall, I'd give them like maybe two stars, but they did have a genius to them.
2 stars with a genius. Wilk, what do you got?
75 stars.
No, out of 5.
75 out of 5.
You convert that out of 5.
You can go. It's a fraction. I'd say 75 out of 5. So what is that? That's 14, 13, right?
13 times.
No, wait, no, that's not 13. 14. That's 15. Yeah, so I get a 15 I guess.
15 times
75
5.
out of 5. 15.
So does that mean you loved the stories?
No, I just think that,
or you hated them.
Just would give it 75 stars. If I had 100 stars, I'd keep 25 and I'd give 75 to the stories.
70.
So what does that convert
75%?
to us? That's like 4.
So 70,
that's 4
no,
out of 5.
I just think that.
So you give them like a 4.
3.5
so you really like?
If I had 1,000,000 stars, I give them 70. They don't need more than 75 stars. I mean, no one needs more than 75 stars. I'm just saying.
So does that mean you really like the story?
So you give 1
no,
star.
It just means I would grant them 75. I mean, I don't know, what is a star worth? I mean,
do you like H.P. Lovecraft or you don't? Would you read him again
for 75 stars? Mm-hmm. I mean,
would you read H.P. Lovecraft again or no?
Yeah, if I'm on a plane with the book, I'll read it. If it's there.
Okay, so you would. Okay, so you weren't turned off by it.
I wasn't turned off. I gave him 75 stars, man. How many stars you got?
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
It means
I'll give this collection of short stories 4 stars, and I'd say if you're into H.P. Lovecraft, this is definitely worth checking out because there's a lot of information in this collection just to have you learn more about him. If you don't like his style and you have issues with his obviously problematic personal views, then you might just not.
Maybe you like Coolidge,
but that's how. Yeah, if you're a Coolidge fan,
maybe you like Coolidge.
You might go
maybe
with
like
it.
Coolidge. Maybe
there's a lot out there.
Otherwise, I'd go with it. So, pending that, I will invite anyone and everyone to go visit our website, nodeodorant.com.
Still?
To go rate our podcast. Rate, R-A-T-E.
Oh, that makes way more sense.
On iTunes. You can follow us on iTunes. We're on TuneIn Radio. We're on various other
TuneIn Radio?
places.
What the hell is that?
Podcasts. We're on YouTube.
We're everywhere.
We're on YouTube. We have our own Facebook fan page.
We're behind you. We're in your shower.
We also have the allies of the Budapest Kurt Vonnegut Appreciation Society.
Do. Hey, but seriously, have you guys?
They liked our So I would invite anyone to give us some feedback on our horrible podcast and tell us how much you hate it. And next month, are we going to do The Martian next? We're going to do The Martian next, right? So next month, tune in as we review the book The Martian by Andy Weir and the film The Martian directed by Ridley Scott and starring Matt Damon. That should be very, very exciting. With that, I will have everyone here say a very enthusiastic and heartfelt good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
For more information on the topics discussed in this episode, or to read our show notes and find us on social media, visit nodeodorant.com. For more information on Ryan Sean O'Reilly and his various works of fiction, visit ryanseanoreilly.com. For more information on David Wilkinson, visit drycracker.com. For more information on Richard Mell, check out his profile at goodreads.com. The theme music for this podcast was written by John Doyle from the band I Decline. You can visit him at i-decline.com. Voiceover for this podcast was provided by me, Margaret O'Reilly. Well, that concludes our episode. We hope you've learned a lot. Again, thanks for listening to our show. And always, always remember, there is no deodorant in outer space.
When we were talking about King and Yellow. Oh, right into the mic. That was delicious.
That's awesome.
Well, did you like the story? Did you like stories or not?
Yeah, there were stories that I read. Yes.
Well, I know they were stories that you read, but did you like them or did you not like them?
I don't want to divide the audience and give my... No, let's not get political. I'm just...
Divide the
75
audience.
stars. What? It was too pro-immigration. It was too liberal. He didn't go for the jugular. It was... I don't know. I mean, I was hoping that it would actually speak to the racial climate of 2015 and did not. So, 75 stars.
Yeah.
So, given the context the stories are written, does
Ryan.
I just think Donald Trump would have done a better job if he was elected than H.P. Lovecraft.
But he didn't. He didn't read the
no,
stories.
I'm saying if the election was today and it's Lovecraft versus Trump, I'm voting for Trump. I'm gonna build that wall. Keep out Cthulhu.
If it came down to that, I would have to vote for Trump.
So you did not like these stories. You would.
I
not
gave him
read
75 stars.
again.
I've given you no stars. 75 stars is a lot of stars, dude. How many stars do you have? How many stars does anyone have? I have 2 stars. I have 2 stars, and I bought them.
What?
I bought 2 stars. They're like $50 a piece.
What does that
I bought
mean?
some stars. I bought a star for Callie. I bought a star for Julia. Happy birthday. Here's your star. Star registry. So I'm just saying that's
What?
I'm saying
What are you
I have
talking
2
about?
stars. I would give them 75 stars.
I'm just trying to convert your Wilkisms into something people can understand.
I'm getting fucking hammered.
How many stars could you afford? Okay.
Yeah, if you could afford how many stars you wanted, how many would you give to
I'm buying them
Lovecraft?
I'm buying them on credit, dude. I'm not gonna. I mean, what the fuck? I'm not gonna fuck. There's no dinner. There's no dancing. We're all married here. I'm not gonna take them out to dinner. I'm just buying some fucking stars. Here's some stars. Thanks for the stories. You give me a story, I give you stars. Give me some stars. Here's a story. Story, stars. Stars,
What?
stories.
Just
It's
go
stars
with it,
and
Ryan. Just go
stories.
with it.
It's stars and stripes. Stars and stories. You give me a story, I give you some stars. What else do I like?
What?
Give me something else that I like. Give me a hash brown. I like a hash brown. I give a hash brown 20 stars. So,
What?
how many stars do you give him?
No one wants to know the truth.
How many stars do you give him?
Are you trying to disguise how you really feel about him, Wilk? You don't want people to know how you feel about
I'm an open
Lovecraft?
book. I'll show you my nipple. What the fuck do I care? I'm just saying, you got one nipple and 75 stars.
Does this mean you like H.P. Lovecraft or you don't like him?
Ryan, I'm not going to explain how stars work to you. I'm not
I
Neil
don't want you to
deGrasse
explain how stars-
Tyson.
I want you just
I'm
to-
not an astronomer.
I just want you to-
I'm not a
I
science
just want you to tell me if you like H.P. Lovecraft or not.
75 stars. What the fuck do you want me to do? I can't.
No,
I
forget the
almost drank
stars.
a bottle of
Forget-
wine. You're. Oh shit! What is this?
You're doing a podcast right now.